So here we are in this amazing, beautiful meadow full of deer grass. This is deer grass. Probably doesn't look like a whole lot right now. Today is March 23rd, 2020. We've had actually 2 really good snows this winter, spring, and so the deer grass is a little bit flattened down. Snow is good like that. When you have a heavy snow, it will crush and sort of level the last year's plants, and that allows them to get worked back into the soil faster. The dead material becomes part of what nourishes the next generation, and it also slows down the growth of plants that are a little more assertive than others. One of the big ones around here is the mountain sage, California sagebrush. I don't do Latin names, sorry. And so you'll see it sort of squish down this winter, because on December 26th we got 3 feet of snow overnight, and on Thanksgiving we also had a 3-foot snow. We haven't had anything like that in a long time, so that's really awesome and really helpful for the environment. And we got some rain at this elevation last night, and then up higher we got some snow. So this is as good as it gets. Absolutely gorgeous day with clouds and blue sky, flowing water, and a hint of green coming up as spring starts to take off for us. So deer grass is a native grass, and there's a bunch of things that are important about keeping native plants. One of the deer grass is a plant that indigenous people use to make baskets and probably other things. I'm not from this region, so I don't know what all deer grass was used for, but absolutely essential in basket making. From an environmental standpoint, the deer grass doesn't burn like cheat grasses and like a lot of your invasive grasses do. The deer grass burns very slowly when it does catch fire. It doesn't blow up and spread and move fire along. And really importantly, it's a perennial grass. It contains moisture all year long. So you don't have the fire hazard with deer grass that you do with the invasive species grasses. Probably what's along this creek bed is a lot of cheatgrass that's going to come up. Its seeds will spread. It'll be dry. It'll be bone dry by June. It'll be ready to burn by June. And so keeping your native plants intact, your native plant community intact, is really super important. Fire is a big part of this ecosystem, and a lot of people I know are really afraid of fire, and a lot of people are really anti-reintroducing fire. But part of the problem that we are seeing the results of now is that we have this desire to archive nature, to make it hold still in a certain spot that we're comfortable with and that we're familiar with and that we remember from our childhood, or that our grandparents remember from their childhood. And that's not really how life goes. That's not realistic for nature, and it's not realistic for us either. Although we do the same thing as people, we really try to archive our bodies at the place that we were most comfortable with them. For me, that was probably somewhere between 19 and 36. But it doesn't work like that. And really all you need to do is look at your own body and know that this is a cycle, this is a process. And so nature's not any different. There's a life, death, life cycle, and fire is a part of that. And I'll talk more about fire probably all the time. But right now here for the deer grass, this is a beautiful meadow right here. There's another one I may go to today, or maybe in a couple of days, right over there, that's actually more full. It doesn't have space for invasive species to grow. The deer grass is very close together. And I think it would be interesting if at some point we could do a prescribed burn there, so that hopefully I will get a chance not only to document the burn itself, but then to come back and look at the health of the grass. To come in first, take a look at it when it's not covered in snow, when it's starting to grow again, see the health of it, kind of document where it's at, document the burning of it, and then document its regrowth process. As you can see here, the grass is not really dead like it looks. It's got a pretty good rhizome just beneath the soil layer, and so when it does burn, that that is full of moisture and actually doesn't burn, and it's just the grass leaves on top that do. I do have some pictures of that from a burn last May. And it doesn't really travel. It kind of smolders. The dry stuff sort of burns up, but it doesn't flame. It doesn't get a high flame to it. And so one of the challenges that we have in trying to reintroduce fire to areas where fire has been absent for a long time in an effort to have some sort of say about how hot it burns, because fire is not really an if, it's a when it's going to happen. One of the problems we're facing today, probably the biggest problem, is two problems. Probably the biggest problem on the ground is invasive species, because they change everything. Invasive species are species that were not native to this area, that were introduced either on purpose or by accident, and what distinguishes them, the difference between an invasive species and a non-native is a species that got introduced, that's probably not supposed to be there, but it's not really taking over the environment, it's not hurting anything, it's not bad. An invasive species comes in, takes over the environment, displaces the native plants, displaces wildlife often because it doesn't have any nutritional value for the wildlife, and it may even have under its in its root system, it may even produce chemicals that go into the ground that push away native plants and favor others of its own kind. So that said, there's a lot of things that affect our ability to control fire today, the way indigenous people did it just a couple hundred years ago. And the other thing, obviously, is climate change. And, I've been to a couple of LA County fire meetings, not public meetings, but meetings that are all firefighters and Forest Service people and different people from the industry, and they don't talk about the theory of climate change. They don't talk about that's not even an issue. Climate change is a real deal. And my personal opinion, which is backed up by some science, is that human beings have affected the climate ever since we started clearing land and farming. And we did, and it was small. The climate impact was very small and very local. But if you think about what we do now, it is impossible to imagine that our actions do not have impacts. That you can't have an action without a reaction. You cannot even really think something without affecting everything. So yeah, we might not be the only thing driving climate change, but we're the biggest thing. So climate change is another big factor in reintroducing fire, and it's a factor that 200 years ago the native people here weren't really dealing with, and they definitely weren't dealing with invasive species the way we do today. So anyways, deer grass, wonderful native plant, really part of the fire ecology that we knew before invasive species. Great plant to hold water in the soil all year round, to not spread fire uncontrollably when a fire does come. Useful to indigenous people, useful to people today who keep the arts alive, who keep those ancient traditions of basket making alive. Probably has other uses I don't know about. And I know this is kind of a funny time to show it to you because it's all flattened down and it's not that pretty, but if you can get that things are only pretty when they're green thing out of your head, this is actually a really gorgeous meadow. I'm going to take the dog and walk away and let you enjoy the songs of birds for a couple minutes. Thank you. Come on, go.